So I thought I'd start off by asking you about this idea of the shadow. I was just listening to Energy Anatomy last night, and I love Energy Anatomy. I love it. And I know that the shadow is not bad, but I catch myself when I'm talking about the shadow aspect of myself, still viewing it as bad. You know, there's the light, and the light is good, and then there's the shadow aspect, and it has this bad feeling.
Okay, so I'm gonna hit a pause button.
Great.
And two things. First, you are coming from this place of polarity. It's either good or bad, right or wrong, winner or loser. This polarity mind instead of an antinomial position, which is a more moving on. If I was your spiritual director, for example, I would say we have to move out of that, because that in itself is a source of suffering. Because if you perceive someone as the winner, then you will always be the loser. If you see someone as having more, you will always have less. That is an illusionary mind, as Buddha would say. The next step that you have to proceed on your inner growth is the position that two sides can coexist that in fact oppose each other. The antinomial, that it's not about winner or loser or right or wrong, it is simply is. That somehow in their opposition is their support. So, that's that. Within that model then, shadow becomes that which you have yet to learn about yourself. So if you look at it from this point of view, if you don't know what's on the floor, what's on the floor can hurt you because you might step on it. And it may even be a pile of gold, but you still will trip on it and break your leg. But it's not evil. It's just that you didn't know it was there. So it doesn't make it, shadow doesn't make it wrong, but if you don't know that part of yourself, then you are inclined to, it will let itself be known through instinct or through rapid fire. Like you'll behave in a way that if I said to you, why did you do that, Shannon? Then your first inclination would be to say to me, I don't know. My inclination to you would be, that's simply not good enough. And we're not going to leave this couch till you make up something, till you give a reason, till you look clearly at why you threw your shoes at the wall. Eventually, you will finally say, because the wall wouldn't move when I told it to, because I was angry, whatever it is, finally you'd have to look at that. And you'd realize, I have temper tantrums whenever I don't get my way. And has that worked for you? Well, no, and this is how you discover the shadow. Teresa of Avila, who's my patron saint, my saint, as it were, she said the spiritual journey, as did Buddha in his way, and Jesus in his way, and all great spiritual masters in their way, that the spiritual path is the path of self-knowledge, the path of discovery of why do I do this? Not why does someone else do it to me, which is what we've turned the spiritual path into. Why did they hurt me? Oh my goodness. Who cares why someone hurt you? I could care less why someone hurt you. What I want to know is why you want to hurt them. That's the great mystery. And that's your spiritual path. Is why do I have this appetite for vengeance? That's your spiritual path. And that's how you find your shadow.
So if I'm blaming someone else, that is vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just blaming, but dwelling on what I want to do to them. Because this is a reflection on who you are, your character. Your life is not about figuring out what someone else has done to you, because you'll be following everybody around for the rest of your life like a tail on a dog.
Yeah.
And if I was your spiritual director and you would say, my mom, my dad, my this, my that, honestly, I would look and say, you go in that toilet and put your head in there for 7 minutes. And when you're done crying about who did what to you, then we're going to come out here and begin with what you want to do to them. And that begins your spiritual path.
Mm. Mm. So really allowing ourselves to look at what I want to do with them, what I want to do to them.
Allowing yourself?
Yeah, well, you said
What kind of word is that?
come out on the couch and talk about what you want to do.
Allowing yourself? What kind of California word is that?
Well, because I experience it as suppression. When I don't allow myself to have those thoughts and those feelings, I'm suppressing that anger.
It's got nothing to do with allow. You will have it whether or not you allow it at all.
Got it.
You don't allow. What kind of word is that? Where do you go? How are you thinking? Those feelings are going to come at you like a tsunami, whether or not you allow it. It's called the unconscious. It's called subcutaneous. It's called bad behavior. It's called pouting. It's called you'll make yourself known, believe me. Better get that pretty little way of talking about it out of your system because it doesn't work. You don't allow bad behavior. It just takes you over.
Amen. I was listening to you last night, and then betrayal came up, and this is something I've been working through. And you said the reason you are going to be betrayed is this: betrayal is the archetypal pattern in life in which a paradigm of power needs to fail you on the outside of your life, so that you can look for a deeper level of power on the inside of you. Whew. That hit me to my core, because that's exactly how the betrayal has pushed me on my personal spiritual path.
Just one.
Well, there's one in mind.
Okay.
There's one in mind. But of course, there's many betrayals.
Is this you betraying others, or are you talking about how you betrayed somebody?
This
or
is
how you were betrayed. Which side of the coin are we dealing with? Because it'll be both.
Right.
You will do a major betrayal. So it's not about you being betrayed. It's also about you betraying someone else in a real Judas moment. So which one are we talking about here?
The one I've experienced is a betrayal in relationship upon me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done your betrayal, though?
Not in that context. Not in the romantic context.
It doesn't have to be, well, it doesn't matter. You will.
Have I betrayed someone? I mean, I must have.
Trust me, ask somebody.
Yeah.
Is there someone not talking to you?
No.
Okay.
People like to talk to me.
It doesn't have to be romantic.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. But here's the setting. Life will provide you with a setting in which there is a choice that cannot be reconciled without someone feeling betrayed. It's as simple as that. And what betrayal is all about is not betrayal. It's about human beings facing the fact that in life we cannot control the passage of our lives or the journey of our lives. Because we choose one path. We choose the path of, I want my life to be on the path where I do not get hurt. Another person might say, well, I want my life on the path where I make a lot of money. Well, another person might say, I want my life on the path where my self-esteem develops. And another person might say, I want my life on the path where I develop a deep and profound relationship with truth. Now, which of those paths is the authentic one? Because they're all an option for you.
The truth one.
Okay, now, but what if you were on the one, but I just want love?
Then I'll get betrayed till I find the truth.
Bingo. But it looks like betrayal. But it's not. It's that. And what we look at is that we think that all of our life, that we can make decisions, that we can have relationships that are all about protecting us. And in order to do that, it means everybody in our life, everybody, has to make decisions that only and continually support our life over their own. Over their own. So that if they were to bow their head in private one day and say, God, direct me. I don't know what's rumbling inside of me, but I feel something. And that rumble said, it's time. It's time for you to do this. And that guidance doesn't include the two of us. But they must go. And we can throw ourselves and say, you're betraying me. You promised you would be here. Well, when they made that promise, they didn't know that a year down the road, they would be called to go elsewhere. They didn't know that. And they must go. Any more than I knew that a year down the road, I would be called to go left instead of right and say, I'm sorry, at the time. We have to be very clear, very careful. And this is what defines this is one of the things, Shannon, that defines who we are so very differently than the generations who came before us. The generations who lived before World War II were in a much different capacity to say, I will be with you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? And that marriage archetype was a much more they could slip into the marriage archetype and get cozy in there and fulfill the demands of that particular archetype far better than we can. We are not suited to it anymore. As much as there's a part of us that says, I still find the idea of marriage so romantically attractive. The fact is, we don't fit it anymore. We have become too self-needy, too self-indulgent. We put ourselves too much ahead. We need our own space. We need this. We need that. We want our needs met. We want this. That's not the marriage archetype. The marriage archetype is putting the other first and the marriage itself. Most people have no idea how to do that. They're so selfish and full of themselves. The inner self was not even constructed years ago, was not even animated with the marriage archetype. Do you think your grandparents ever said, my inner self is feeling like it needs to have a walkabout? Are you crazy? That's the kind of, we have so many needs that you can expect fully that to say to someone, I want to spend the rest of there's no such thing as the rest of your life anymore.
And is that part of our evolution?
Yeah.
If we're aware of that, are we seeing it in light, bringing the shadow to the light, or should we be striving towards this archetype?
I think we should talk about it now as it's the reality of pursuing the self and the fact that we have it's the reality of looking at what is the spiritual path. And the spiritual path is, as Teresa of Avila said 500 years ago, as Francis of Assisi said 900, 1,000 years ago, it is the pursuit of self-knowledge under the tutelage of heaven. Which means you have no idea what the world behind your eye is really about, or what happens when your soul, the depth of your soul, merges, the appetites of your soul merge with the force of your ego. You haven't got a clue what you're going to find out about yourself. You haven't a clue. Because if your ego on its own shops for a relationship that makes you feel good about yourself, your soul shops for a way for you to make others feel good about themselves. Your soul has such a different life agenda for you. And if your soul wakes up somewhere along the line, you're going to want to dismantle the world you live in and figure out a way to give to the world instead of take. But if your ego chooses your first relationship, it's going to be one in which you have to part. You have to. It's not a betrayal. It's that I chose. It's like the first world you live in is one constructed from fear. Oh, do I still make you happy? Do I this? Christ, if someone was like that around me, it'd be like a barnacle on a ship. Like, get away from me. Until you can stand on your own. Christ, it's enough to deal with my own soul. I don't want yours around. It's all about, how best the fragility of the ego will say, what can I take? What can I have? What can, you know, does this, you know, I need a designer bag, I need this, I need that, is someone looking at me, blah, 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 blah. That life, thank God, in most people falls apart at some point, because it's a weak, empty life that is all about getting attention. People actually think that they were born for a special purpose, that that's their life purpose, is to be special. That that's actually a life purpose. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? That a life purpose is to be noticed. Okay, now I'm noticing you. And does that make you feel fulfilled? You're now being noticed. Are you now fulfilled? It is meaningless.
But we need to be. There is this light attribute of it that I see, that people do need to be seen.
For what reason?
To feel like connected to another person.
What does to be seen mean?
To be seen, to be
Tell
witnessed,
me. Really?
To be seen.
And what does that mean?
It means that I'm here.
Don't you know you're here?
I do.
And why do you need someone else to know?
Well, we're hardwired for connection, right? So connection can't be inherently
one other person
bad.
says, now you're here, and now what does that do for you? Tell me what that does for you.
Probably some amount of dopamine in my brain.
Okay, and what does that do for you? And how many times do they need to say that to you? Tell me how many times.
I mean, not enough.
Right.
For the ego, right?
And so it's just an empty black space, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want them to say to you every day?
You're perfect,
you're still
here.
You're still here.
Mm.
And then you become competitive with everybody else they look at.
Mm.
Because in fact, it does nothing for you.
Mm.
Not a thing. Nothing. It makes you weak because they look at someone else. Oh my gosh, you're looking at someone else.
You love her more than you love me.
I'm not getting my fix. Oh my God. In fact, you've just given away all your power. All of it. You're hemorrhaging to a compliment. How tragic is that?
Mm. So how did you learn that? You embody your power very strongly.
Yeah,
you know this.
Yeah.
So, but did you ever not know that?
Mm-hmm. But here is where I have advantages over you. That I do. In this regard, when I was your age, and I can't believe I'm at the age where I'm saying that, but I am. So take it from a sage now, because I'm like fine wine. I really am, you know, and believe me, I'm enjoying being fine wine. So I love being a wise sage, and I love passing it on. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love teaching younger people and watching sparks go in their eyes, and I love smacking you around when I see you on the wrong path.
Yeah.
Because it makes me happy. It thrills me to teach truth. It thrills me. I wish it didn't, because I'd retire, but it does. Okay, so here's what's truth. When I started my life work, I was headed in a different direction. I never even heard of medical intuition. And I never wanted to help anybody this way, ever. I had no intention of going near a soul. All I wanted to do was write fiction and be anonymous. Because I thought, what a wonderful thing. I could turn the world upside down with great novels, walk down a street, see people reading my novels, and they would never know who I was. And nothing appealed to me more than that. I could sit next to them, and they would never know that I was the person changing their life. And it appealed to me in this wild-eyed way that maybe it doesn't appeal. Other people want to be recognized, and I love the power of anonymity, and I still do. Okay, so when my life just dried up, and in Chicago, and I had to move to New Hampshire. I chose to move to New Hampshire, actually, but I had no other choice. So that's a funny kind of way to say it. But and I ended up in a farmhouse in the mountains at a time when there were no computers, there was no Google, there was nothing, there was no Facebook, there was none of this. I ended up meeting my beloved friend and medical partner, Norm Shealy. So we're in the 80s now, and I ended up doing 5 to 7 medical intuitive readings per day, in the mountain. I didn't even have a TV because there was no satellite stuff. So I was living like in this hermitage. I did my publishing work and then came back to this 40-acre farm, and I didn't even realize I rented a farm. And I was in total silence for a year. And that was the beginning of, and I did these readings every day for 6.5 years, except for Christmas. But I did not get up in the morning and plug myself into myself the way you do. I did not get up in the morning and think, Google, Facebook, FaceTime, Twitter. That didn't even exist. I simply got up in silence, lived in silence, went about my tasks. I had to go 3 miles one way to get my mail, so half the time I never got it. It was complete bliss.
That's so incredibly different.
And I simply did the readings and did my work as a publisher and lived on this big farm. And it never occurred to me. There was no other person doing readings like that. So there was no such thing as this competition. Is anyone talking about me? Oh my God, da-da-da-da-da. Never occurred to me to think the way you guys think. The way you think is catastrophic from where I'm sitting. And it's the source of suffering. Because it's all about you. You guys are so obsessed with you, with your you-ness and your specialness. There was no such thing as a thought that I have to be special. My God, I was raised by nuns and priests, and if they caught that in you, thank you, God, that I didn't have that kind of ego. It was, that kind of thought was like, whoa. But that is a suffering. And I've said to my friends, don't you dare ever tell your children that. They may be special to you, as they should be, but don't you ever tell them that they were born for something special. Because it is they think that somehow life is going to be delivered to them. They owe life something special. Life did not give them something because they were born. You tell your children, you owe life something special. Now let's prepare you. These are the things you're going to have to know. I want you to have and that's what I told our kids. You're going to have a backbone of titanium by the time I'm done with you. Titanium. You're going to know archetypes. You're going to know spirituality. You're going to know this. You're going to know that. You're going to have a language. You're going to have this. These are the things you will know by the time you're an adult. Because you will give to this life. You will serve in a soup kitchen while you're growing up. You will do this. You will do that. And they did. And now they know what service is. They've seen it. And each one of them is now taking care of their children in the same way. You will be of service. You will learn this. You will learn to pray. You will learn this. Every single one of them. You prepare to be of service to the world, not to be recognized, but to spot what needs to be recognized. That's how they were raised in my home.
We could use some of that.
And none of them have breakdowns. They're not on drugs. They don't think they've been an abusive childhood. They have spines like titanium. Spiritual titanium. And nobody's allowed to bring those phones at the dinner table. Nobody.
How old are your kids?
These are family kids from 40 down to, well, now the second generation. So yesterday was Benjamin's birthday. He's 4. So that's the second generation. He's my grand nephew. And my grandniece was born. She's Catherine the Great.
But not special.
She's great. But she is to us.
Of course.
But she's not going to be told that. You're not told that because how is it possible that you can walk outside and think that everybody needs to look at, do you know how many people I've met through my career who are suffering because they think that they should be recognized that they feel neglected because they weren't told they were special? By whom? By whom? Who was born to tell you you're special?
Is there a difference between being told, oh, sweetie, you're so special, you're so beautiful, you're so special, and being trained in the way that you're talking about?
Educated.
We're educated.
Guided. You train a dog.
A force.
You train a dog.
You train a dog.
Yeah. This is guided.
This is guided.
Yeah. I mean, guidance is, this is high voltage knowledge and guidance, which is like the mystery schools. You know, your mind needs educating, your heart needs educating, and so does your soul. Your soul. You need to know how to use the gifts of your soul. You need to know how to listen to yourself. Your conscience needs to be refined and woven into your decisions so that when you hear don't do that, you don't do it. Because you need to know if you decide, and this is what I learned through my work, and it blew me out of the water, because I learned this from the nuns and the Jesuits, you know, from the priests, that you let your conscience be your guide. For God's sake, Walt Disney taught that. And what was that little character's name? He was a grasshopper.
Jiminy Cricket. Yeah.
You know, that even you know, even when we were growing up, these little characters in our cartoons, our animations taught us that. And they had little songs, let your conscience be your guide and all of that. But I did not know, I did not realize till I was a medical intuitive that your biology pays attention to that too. That if you decide to compromise the guidance that comes from your soul, that your soul says, and your biosystem, your bioecology, it's a biospiritual ecology, registers it, because you can't betray yourself. Someone else may betray you and you think, oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. You get over it. Betray yourself, and that's another issue.
Mm.
That's another issue. That's a biological debt.
Mm.
It's a soul debt. And it goes recorded.
Mm.
And that's the kind of thing that sticks in your craw. And what I see people do is they always try to project a blame on others for self-betrayal. You're the reason I did this. You're the reason I did this. No, you can't have it both ways. You can't be an adult in the morning and then betray yourself in the evening and blame somebody else for that.
Mm.
Only you reside in your body.
I had this experience, and to some degree, you in my ear to the whole experience.
Ooh.
When this was going on in my relationship, and there was a certain toxic dynamic that, yes, I was betrayed, but it got to a point where I was betraying myself.
You were betraying yourself first, and then the relationship went south.
Mm. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I see that. Yes.
It could only go that way. How come? Now answer the question. How come self-betrayal had to happen first?
Because
Come on, little grasshopper.
here we are again. You called me a grasshopper in our last interview. Because the only reason someone else would betray me was because I wasn't listening to the guidance. I wasn't listening to the guidance in my body. My body knew leave, but I didn't want to leave. My ego didn't want to leave. And so where I had you in my ear, and not you, really it was my own guidance, is leave, you're losing power, you're losing power, you're losing power. And so life had to be like, Shannon, leave, you need that power to stay alive.
But you didn't
because I was more invested in my ego's wants than in my soul's
Okay,
knowing.
so now what do you think's going to happen?
Well, either I'll learn the lesson or I'll repeat it.
Which one do you want?
I want to learn it.
But what's more likely?
I'm going to learn it.
What's more likely?
I'll learn it the hard way in a different circumstance.
Okay.
But maybe not.
Okay. Okay, so what you need to really get is what you just said, which is there was no betrayal at all. He didn't betray me. He had to do that because I was losing power.
Mm.
So he had to walk away. My own system made him walk away.
Mm.
I kicked him off my planet because I was losing my power.
Mm.
So my whole system kicked him off. I ejected him. If you cannot see that, then you don't see anything clearly.
Mm.
You ejected him because he was not sustaining your life force. He was costing you your life force. It was a life decision.
Yeah.
And it's irrelevant to me that it hurt your feelings. I don't care about your feelings. I really don't.
Yeah.
This
Thank
is
you.
about sustaining your life force. That's what I care about.
Mm.
I care about that. I care about you waking up. Feelings mend. But especially if you get, oh, I get the lesson. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. My system took charge over what my heart wanted.
Mm.
This could never be sustained. I was compromising myself, and this relationship was making me weaker by the day. I was no longer being honest. I would say whatever in the world. I was becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. So how is it he betrayed you?
You're asking me.
Yeah. How is it he betrayed you? If in fact you were hemorrhaging.
Mm.
Where was the betrayal? If he in fact was saving you from collapsing.
Mm.
Tell me where the betrayal is.
Well, it didn't exist.
Bingo.
It didn't exist.
No. Yeah. Your system, the whole system, just any system in the laws of nature where the two sides become so imbalanced, they break. It's just the law of nature. It's not personal. It's the law of nature.
Right, and that's where we get tripped up. This is what you talk about
Yes.
in anatomy of the spirit and
Yes.
energy anatomy. We get tripped up when we think it's personal,
Yes.
and we can't
Perfect.
see our lives symbolically.
Perfect. We always, if you take something personal, that's not personal. And that's the difference between the ego and the soul. The soul gets that it's not personal at all. That it had to happen because your one system was hemorrhaging, and the other one was too. If I saw clearly, so the systems no longer were sustaining each other in a healthy way, and therefore, like all life systems, where they cease to sustain, they must part. It doesn't matter. Whether it's crops, whether it's what, it doesn't matter. Any life systems that don't sustain each other must fall apart, must be taken apart. It's irrelevant that it's people.
So I would love to ask you this. So this is happening in an individual way, or happened in me, and I also see exactly what you're saying playing out in the collective. And we have this, the divisiveness appears to becoming more and more divided. And we have this archetypal pattern called Donald Trump. And so I want to ask you about that. Is Donald Trump an archetypal pattern? I believe yes. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And what does this mean for where we are at as a collective, that we are becoming so polar?
So what do I think about Trump? I actually think he's the incarnation of a devil. I actually really do. I think that he steals the soul, and that his whole minions are like sycophants. That cave, there isn't one statesman with dignity there, not one with courage. They sell their souls. They lie blatantly, from this Devin Nunes to Mitch McConnell. They lie so pathetically. Of course he's in league with the Russians. If I hung out with everybody from Russia, do you think I'm going to turn around and say, I never hang out with people from Russia? They're all over the place. Of course he is. He's a criminal. He's a criminal. And you've got to be blind not to see it. You've got to be blind. You think he behaves this way because he's innocent? He's turned our government upside down. Everybody in Moscow and Putin, and not just Putin, but the Chinese are laughing as our country is falling apart. Falling apart. By the hour. By the hour. By the hour. Every one of those Republicans, every one of them, should be taken out of office immediately for what they have done to this country. And none of them is suited to set foot in the Capitol. They've all betrayed their oath of office, and I think the Russians probably broke into the RNC. Maybe they have secrets on these senators and congressmen. Maybe they're blackmailing them. I don't care, but the lowest common denominator is holding this country politically hostage.
And so is one of the ways that I view this is that it's the potential for healing. I mean, I get that's a pretty way of looking at it, but
It's an understatement.
is it not the pulling up of the rock and seeing all the dirt and the worms?
You know what?
Is it not the dusting
I
off?
think we're a
that's
long
necessary?
way from that. Okay.
Mm.
I think that sort of jumps the gun.
Mm.
And I think that before we get to healing, we have to say this is the potential for an analysis of how dark and deep and wretched this goes. So before I even get to the word healing, you have to get to the fact that how come we don't like truth? How come in order for us to even get to truth, we have to create an archetype called the whistleblower to even speak the truth? Why have we gotten so accustomed to lies?
Mm.
Why is there even a Fox News in this country that just broadcasts lies and it's okay for us? Why aren't the parents taking to the streets screaming, we want civics back in the classroom? Why? Are you kidding? Healing? We have to expose the fact that we're a nation without a backbone anymore. We are so far from healing. So far. It's not funny.
Yes, and the giggle is in the truth of it, not in that I think it's funny. So Carolyn Myss for president.
Yeah.
I love how much of a historian you are. So many people in this work are about being in the present moment and being in the future, and
being in the future.
Well, looking towards the future, creating a vision, seeing where we're going, looking ahead.
Okay.
I like that you are.
All you have to do is say to someone is tell me everything about yourself, but I don't want to know one thing about your history. Nothing. Don't tell me one thing about your history. No interest in your history at all. Tell me all about yourself. I don't even want to know what you had for lunch, but tell me all about yourself, but nothing about your history.
Impossible.
Bingo. How would I possibly be able to put anything at all in a context about your future, about your tomorrow, about any choice you're making right now, if I didn't know what put you together? What is more naive and more foolish?
Mm. So what?
I need to know that you're Irish, that you have a clouded ring on, that you put that on deliberately to let the world know you're open to a relationship, that you have a deep, obviously, respect for the Irish culture. You probably love Irish music, and maybe you studied Irish dancing. That you have an enchantment there. That everything about you tells me, if I didn't know all of that, I wouldn't understand the decisions that you will make in the upcoming of your life. But if I said, it's how can people not understand history? How can they make one decision? How can they look at the news and make one decision, and understand one thing anybody's doing if they don't understand the history of Russia, for example? I spent 7 years studying just that. That's it. I just finished 2 books again on the biography and one the autobiography of Stalin's daughter. I mean, you have to know how that mind thinks. I've taught over there. That whole part of the world, they never even had a Renaissance. They never had a Renaissance.
Mm.
And so when the Russian Revolution came, when the Romans, when the Renaissance when we had an Enlightenment, that whole time, that whole age of humanity and humanism, the very thing that woke Hume up and John Locke and Rousseau and Voltaire, the very threads of what inspired our Constitution, that never even crossed over there. They went from being serfs essentially to political slaves and communists under Stalin, and into that horrible time of purges that they're a different mindset.
Mm.
Very different. The czarist mindset, Putin thinks like a czar. And this jackass we have thinks he's a king. So they have a very interesting duo. It is an archetypal fascination because what they both want is to be the first trillionaires. They want to turn this planet into their mutually agreed upon kingdom. One's a king, one's a czar.
Yeah. So we should wrap up.
Okay.
But I want to ask you one final question.
What?
Where do we bring our personal power into the fact that we can so easily feel so powerless in this system, in this Trumpian age? Where do we get our personal? Because I feel very like, well, screw it. I guess it's all to shit.
No.
So,
do you know what the paradox is? And I'm glad you asked that, Shannon, because the paradox is that we've never been more powerful. Even though we look so powerless. Because here's the God works in paradox. What looks small is really big, what looks big is really small, what looks safe is really the biggest risk. The biggest risk is really where you'll find the angels waiting. This is a time when the rules of power are changing, where what is in front of your eye that looks like power is losing power. What is behind your eye is firing up. And it's for every single human being every single human life right now is walking this experiential journey of discovering the outside hasn't got any power. Every time I trust it, it crumbles. And I have to withdraw and go in my inside to sustain myself. And then I go on the outside again and I count on this and I count on that, only to have it evaporate. And if Buddha could show up and say, I told you, it's an illusion, why do you keep doing it again? Because I'm weak, because I'm frightened. Then picture me going, stop. Hold yourself centered. And start making decisions based on, close my eyes, what do you want? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And start using your interior first, and then choose. And then that force fuels this and sustains it until it is not necessary, and then it evaporates. So it's your force that sustains the moment till it's not necessary. Okay? And then once that's done, it's like eating in a restaurant. Once your dinner's done, then the waitress comes and takes your plates away. Then it's like the angels come and say, okay, the scene's done, let's go. Let's go. And
I want to be like, no, I want to eat more food.
Yeah,
that's suffering.
And you want to be like, I want to go to this restaurant, not realizing they're just Hollywood sets. And you just don't get it. They're just Hollywood sets. You have to wait and say, what do you want me to eat and where? Now, sit. And you eat what is sitting in front of you, whatever's served, whatever you find.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.